after you. I'll do my best. I just want to thank all the all of our customers who've come to the launch. You're all busy, taking time out of your busy schedules to come here to get you into our bookshop. I'd like to thank you all for that. Without our customers, we wouldn't have a business. I'd like to thank Mauritius and his team here at Canal Walk for organising the event. Maybe relatively small, and we weren't allowed to have any alcohol because it's a safety presentation, but it still takes quite a bit of effort, and I'd like to thank you guys for organising it. Traditionally Bargain Books hasn't done a lot of events, but we're doing more of them. So thank you, and thanks to everybody here for organising everything. And lastly, I'd like to thank Ken, who's known to most of you, and he has written several books already. And without authors, we wouldn't have books, and without books, we wouldn't have booksellers, and without books to sell, we wouldn't have a business. It all sounds quite obvious, but I think we don't realize what authors do and the amount of work that goes into producing a book, even a relatively thin book like this. A lot of effort goes into it. And I really want to thank you for writing the book and for taking time to come here to do the presentation, to promote it. We really appreciate that. I've known Ken and Penny a long time personally. And I'd like to say that I've had a little hand in this somewhere.
Oh, yes.
The 1 minute manager, sorry, the 1 minute safety manager. Deliberate mistake. But we like to stick to our knitting, which is book selling, and hopefully you didn't take much of what I said into account, because it probably wouldn't be too good. But Ken, I won't go into your career. I think it's you can cover that. Sure. But without further ado, Ken Annandale. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So we did the August Cycle Tour last weekend, and it was an interesting experience because it was our fourth. That one of them was cancelled, one was half burnt out because we had to turn around and came back. And the relevance of that is that we have learned an enormous amount from cycling. Enormous amount of health and safety from cycling, because that cyclists go out on the road there and they get flattened. Because they're very small, they're minute, they are sort of consequential sometimes, and also in disguise. So you often find cyclists on the road wearing black outfits, black shorts, black helmet, black bicycle, black road, and they go out there without lights on their bikes. And you think to yourself, goodness gracious me, isn't it obvious? And then often you hear quite a sad story, the driver says, I didn't see them, and you go, well, of course you didn't see them, they were in disguise, and sort of in camouflage. So we learned right from the beginning that when we go out on the road, we're going to wear high visibility stuff. So Penny and I are known commonly as the yellow people, and if you've ever seen any of our Facebook pages, man, the helmet is yellow, the top is yellow, the lights that are flashing are yellow. We even have little day glow socks, so as the legs go up and down, you can see us happening over there. But what is so relevant about the August Cycle Tour is the very first one that we did as complete novices, we were riding up Suikerbos. Now you know the route. The route goes Cape Town, Simonstown, Cape Point, Noordhoek, over Chappies, Hout Bay, and then that last long slog up Suikerbos. Man, is that it! This year it was the first year I crapped, and it's the first year that Penny actually let me win. Well, that's not true as well, but I let her win. She beat me by about so much. But the truth of the matter is that Suikerbos was the inspiration for this book. Because I realized if you're going to overcome any challenge in life, you must fill yourself with, or fill your head with thoughts, ideas, concepts, and things like that. And that's exactly where the book was born. It was born on Suikerbos. As I was riding up there, filling my head, there's thousands of people around me, and I started outlining the story. And the story came as a result of a frustration that I have in the health and safety world. That frustration is literally this: nobody listens. And even though it's obvious, you think, well, people should listen. We've all experienced it. We go, I told you so. Yeah, but. And the sad part of course, is that when they do mess up or fail, they hide the failure. So it's not part of the normal conversation. Tim, my brother-in-law, standing over there, we don't actually talk about health and safety at the Braai, do we? But we do know at Braai there's health and safety problems and issues. And a friend of mine, John, another John, not any of these Johns over here, he took some fuel lighter and he stuck it on the fire because it wasn't burning properly. It went whoosh, and he went, and inhaled the fumes into his lung, and they burnt the inside of his lungs. So you go, oh man. So when you start looking at it, you start realizing this should be common sense. But we also know that common sense is not so common. It should be ingrained in every single person, but it's just not like that. So I figured if I could write a story that tells what's going to happen in maybe a little entertaining way, I could maybe get the message across in a way that is a lot easier than me pummeling the desk and waggling my finger and preaching to people and being like a parent. Maybe the story will get through to the readers, and they will realize, gosh, this is very real and this happens to all of us. And that's where the story came about. And I started putting it together. We then went to Mauritius. Thank you, Mauritius, for everything you do. Can you believe the man's name is Mauritius? I go, gee, you married my other daughter. And I wrote the book there as a result of John's encouragement. And John had told me the first book, well, one of the books that I wrote was called Movers, Shakers, Moaners and Groaners, and he said to me, I don't like your cover. So, well, if anybody should know about covers, the bookseller should know about covers. So we're reworking the cover. He also said he didn't like the titles. I'm not too. No, you weren't that harsh. But what you did do is that you actually said to me, it can be done. At one of our breakfasts, you kind of like encouraged me, and I thought, well, why not? Why not? And then we started talking about the concept, and eventually the book evolved. So I came back with this book, and it was just a Word for Windows document, as you know, and I then went through the process. And the process is quite simple, but long. You write the book, then somebody edits it, then somebody critiques it, then somebody edits it, then somebody lays it, does the initial typesetting, and then you go into like an initial run, print run, and you got this book, and we didn't even know how to do this properly. We didn't have a printer, our printer disappeared, and then we got this book looking more or less, and then Penny is largely responsible. We said, John, what do you think? And I think you sent it to a couple of your staff members, and they went, not too bad. A couple of comments, which we took to heart. And that was good. And one of the things that we took to heart was, this message, while it is critical, also needs to be short. It can't be a long tome or a textbook or too technical. It must just get the message across. So I started conceptualizing this, and I thought, well, how are we going to do it? Well, for one, we must do it as a South African book. And must have South African characters and the socio-economic situation in South Africa. We must literally use the players that we know. And I have modeled some of the names of people that I know. I go, oh, so-and-so was this and that, and we stuck them in, and we've got various people. We've got two main role players in the book here. The first role player is a young manager who happens to become the manager by virtue of the fact that he has a degree. And we know that a degree doesn't qualify you to manage or to lead. So he's now the manager. You know them, Christopher. You've met these guys. They think they know a lot, but they're under huge pressure. The second character is a young lady, a single mom, who has a son by the name of Mandla, and her name is Annandale. And she's the victim in the story. And the story then continues and unfolds. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And I call it a story because that's exactly what it is. And this bookstore is full of stories. Life stories, good stories, bad stories, fun stories. I see a bestseller over there, scary stories. There's stories in this place with lessons that we can learn, and there is ways of entertaining and sharing information and encouraging people and creating this like new mindset of, wow, maybe I could be, I could have, I could do, I could see, I can explore. Some of the travel books and things that just are inspired by them. These beautiful glossy books of you can do things with your life. Then, of course, there's some very good lessons of it. How to stop doing this, how to do that, how to whatever the title might be. And they are story-based. And stories are something that we've done and told forever, really. From the time that parents were hunters and gatherers, they told stories to their kids. And probably part of the story was when so-and-so got eaten. And if you're a hunter and gatherer, you go, oh yes, Uncle so-and-so or Grandpa was eaten by. Now, if you want to avoid being eaten by, this is what you're going to do. So there's a health and safety rule there. Then it sort of emerged from there into like the agricultural environment, and Mom and Dad said, do not play with fire in the bedroom. This is not a good idea. So they had little rules and they had policies that they applied. Then, of course, we went from the agricultural time into a more industrialized age. And I'm sure there were new hazards and new dangers and new risks that were starting to emerge. And moms and dads came home and told stories about what happened at work. And so-and-so was flattened or squashed, and so-and-so fell off, and so-and-so never came back, or so-and-so, I mean, they're all gory stories. But hey, when we say gory stories, John, you've got a couple of gory stories on your shelves here as well. Yeah, I remember Red Riding Hood. That was a pretty gory story, if you remember that. There's a whole health and safety thing in Red Riding Hood, like slitting the, oh man, gory. But there were lovely lessons in it. So then, from the industrial age, we started seeing the technological age starting to happen. And there were new dangers and hazards and risks that were being introduced. And then from there, from technology, we got into the whole space race. New dangers, hazards and risks. And we see that human beings, us as individuals, we're just not ready for it. Physically, we haven't changed. We haven't evolved in any way. But the dangers, hazards and risks have. And they're getting more and more serious. So that's what the story was about, is let's have something we can kick off. Now, if mom and dad had rules, well, the government's got rules, it's called law. Occupational Health and Safety Act, blah, 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 regulations, standards, procedures, and things like that. And I know that that stuff is boring because I'm an ex-cop. And if you talk to people about Section 16.1, 16.2, Section 8, Section 14, Section 17, I know what we're talking about. Nathan might know what we're talking about. Nathan joined me on a training course last week. But the majority of people go straight over their heads, and it doesn't mean anything to them. But those rules and policies are basically what mom and dad would have written for their kids. But how do we transfer that information? And then, of course, from there we realize that if we do transfer the information and they don't do it, there are penalties. And the penalties could be, on the one hand, the violence and the trauma and all the horrible things that happen, and on the other hand, you could actually be penalized and you can go to court. And there could be a prosecution. So that's where this whole thing came from, is I wanted to weave all of this into a story so that it is not dogmatic or dictatorial, but it's just like a, Now, my target group over here, of course, are supervisors and managers and people that don't listen, don't go, don't have time, aren't interested, just too busy. That's what the target group is. So when John and I were talking about the title, I'm glad we arrived at this title finally, John. The 1 minute safety manager. It's almost like you're the manager, really. Read the book in 1 minute. Now, of course, the book cannot be read in 1 minute. Penny says it's about a 2-hour toilet read. So you go to the toilet and go a couple of times over the weekend. By the end of the weekend, you've, well, maybe not toilet, but maybe Sunday afternoon read. I'll just simplify. There we go. So now it's a short story, and it's deliberately a short story so that you can actually get the message across quickly. Now I want to move away from just that target group, and I want to talk about the target group in terms of the health and safety practitioners. Because these poor guys have a heck of a job. You're almost like the granddad. Repeat yourself, repeat yourself, repeat yourself. You're like a parent. Repeat yourself, you repeat yourself, repeat yourself. And the employees are sometimes like kids. So they behave like kids. You go, well, common sense should be common. I mean, why did you do that? And then they have an answer or no answer at all because they can't answer. So I created this for the safety practitioner, the health and safety guy, who could then literally say, here's a book, read the book. And the book will do the talking for you. The book is a tool so you can get into companies, structures, organizations, but then also homes. Because I tell the story of the young man and Zanele who actually go through a journey and how these things impact their lives. And the stories literally can be shared. So if you have a husband or a wife or a partner who's not particularly health and safety conscious, you can say, read the book. If you have a son who's completely new to the health and safety world, although Nathan's a diver, so you should know more, you go, read the book. Because there's a whole life story in this entire book over here. Did I get to? Okay. Nathan, by the way, Nathan is our marketing manager, and he's been very, very effective in terms of introducing our training material. So well done, Nathan. Cool. Appreciate that. So now you get the picture. So now the incident occurs, and this is the incident. Gory story, Red Riding Hood, with a theme tune. Doo-dum, doo-dum, like Jaws. So young manager, works in a printing department, runs this department, has Zanele, who's an operator. Zanele comes along. She's told, we have a rush job. We've got to get these books, John. We've got to get these books out to the author so he can, or the bookshop, they can distribute them. And we have other production demands, so go and fetch the guillotine in the store that we decommissioned a while ago. You know the guillotine with the two operating mechanisms over here, double-handed operating mechanism? And just ask the maintenance guy, just wire up the one. So we can, it's a perfect guillotine, but the device doesn't work, so that's what Zanele gets. And she's stuck into a corner, and the lighting is bad, and there's lots of rubbish around on the floor, offcuts and things like that. And you know what guillotine's like. I mean, it'll slice this perfectly. And she's feeding the paper in, or the books, to guillotine it. And she operates with one hand and she's distracted. And the guillotine comes down and slices 4 fingers.
Oh.
On her right hand. And she's a single mom.
Pianist?
Yeah, or violin. Now she's a shorthand typist. So, so now you can see the story. And now from here, it's literally, we've had the incident, and then the investigation, and then the Department of Labour inquiry, and then the prosecution. And all the people that are involved in this entire thing, their lives change forever. It's an 18-month to 24-month journey in their lives that will literally, they will never get back their time. They're going to be focused around legal issues. They're going to be running backwards and forwards. There's going to be documents and statements and photographs and evidence. There's going to be all of this unnecessary stuff. And all we were trying to do is get 5,000 books into the bookstore. But we didn't do what was correct. Now all of a sudden, fingers are being pointed at the supervisor, at the so-called safety manager, who actually was the security manager, who was actually a retired policeman like me, who knew nothing about health and safety. Does that sound familiar? Then the human resources guy, we start pointing fingers at him and go, what about the information, the training, the instruction that the law says you must do? Did you do it? And the human resources guy goes, not my responsibility. It's the safety manager who was the ex-policeman, who was the security manager. You see the problems? Then we look at the CEO, who happens to be in London, because it's a multinational company, and he has to come from London to South Africa because of prosecution. And then we have a look at the shop stewards, who are now involved. The foreman, who is involved, vicariously. The first aider, who's involved, because there was nothing in the first aid box when they actually went to the first aid box to go and fetch the first aid. So you can see how the story evolves and unfolds. And in the meantime, our, not hero of the story, but the young manager, his wife falls pregnant for a second time. I don't know how that happened. He was so distracted, but it just happens. And the story ends off at least where there are warnings, fines, and a new baby. So it ends on this heartwarming, sort of romantic kind of feel.
With tears in my eyes.
It ends off with Zanele regaining partial use of the fingers, as one could, but not full use. It ends off with her being promoted and going on training courses, and she then has an opportunity of going from just an operator to a situation where she's a lot more effective within the organization. And that was the purpose of the book. It was as simple as that. Now we're really grateful to say that the book is sold and is starting to sell quite well. And with the promotions and what Bianca, your public relations lady, is doing, we just really appreciate that, John. I want to say to Nathan and to Penny, thank you for your patience, because while writing this thing, I wasn't available. So you can't talk and you can't interact with the family, because I go chase them away. And I actually have a pair of hearing protectors, big red earmuffs, and I put them on so nobody, and you've seen them in the house, John, nobody can talk to me while I'm trying to concentrate on this book. So I want to say thank you to those folk as well. And then I want to go back to my cycling, because essentially the cycling, that whole thing of being on the road and being a cyclist, makes me aware of the fact that every single time we kit up, we have to get into health and safety mode. We have to. We could die. We know friends that have died in terms of accidents on the side of the road. We know way too many stories. I think this year 27 cyclists have been killed in South Africa.
One on the August.
Eh? 2 on the August. Well, 1 in the accident and 1 with a heart attack, so it wasn't really killed. 3?
Yeah, that one Marshall.
Marshals as well. Someone hit him.
Oh. Okay, so now that's the reality of it. 35,000 people on the road. And you have to be aware of it every single day of your life. So Nathan and Penny and Natalie, my daughter, know this, is that we talk safety. We've got fire extinguishers at home, we've got a first aid box at home, we've got a fire escape of sorts. We live on the 4th floor, so it's and a long rope to get out. But we're conscious of this on an ongoing basis. So I just want to end off by saying this. First and foremost, the book is 99 Rand. John, thank you. I mean, this is so accessible. So I'd like to suggest that you order a book, get a copy of the book. I'll sign it for you, take photographs and do all those sorts of things. And then maybe you take half a dozen books, because essentially you've got foremen and charge hands and supervisors and people like that. But if you happen to be married, get him to read the book as well, because or maybe vice versa. So we all get up to that level. And the last thing I'd like to do is I'd like to just say to you that I think this health and safety thing is like a course. It's been mainstream in my life. It's been something that I'm very, very conscious of. And it's something that I'd be highly embarrassed at if I was injured in an incident that I could have prevented. And to me, it's a cause. It's like, in my mind, my own little mind, and my world is, I'm like a health and safety activist. And wherever we go, we see strangers, and Penny knows this, we see strangers and we point out to them and go, hey, Wena, user, pull up hands, hey, whoa, yo. We chat to these guys because then we see them going, and we've got lots of examples of that, where we do that. We've actually had instances where attorneys have called us and threatened us because we try to safeguard the person from falling off a 4-story building. I just told him I said, hey, I know the chief inspector. Do you want me to take this further? We'll stay there. But isn't that crazy? So I'm going to ask you to do a couple of things other than buy the books. And I think, how many books you got in the store? You said you got 50. Hopefully a lot of them are sold already. So that's the first I want to do. And then the second thing is, I'd like to suggest that you talk to your colleagues and friends elsewhere, because you have how many stores, John? 80 odd stores. So John has very graciously stocked the 1 Minute Safety Manager in 80 odd stores around the country. So then if you have friends and family, just promote it. I'd also like to ask you if you want to take some photographs here, put it onto Facebook, so we can get the message out. Now it's good for business. We know that and appreciate that, but it's also good for the cause. So if you wouldn't mind me just challenging you and ask you to become the next health and safety activist. The next person that says, I'm going to do this type of stuff, I'm going to talk up, speak up, stand up, do that type of thing. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to do a draw. So my latest training kit is called the Invest Track. It's an incident investigation training program. It comes with PowerPoints and facilitator guide and things like that. And Penny's going to do the draw for everybody who's got their name in there. And she's got a prize for you, the Invest Track. Okay. Has everybody got their name in here? Okay, so, and now, ladies and gentlemen, the prize goes to Adele Besedno. Well done, Adele. Somebody will take a photograph. Penny's going to give you the training kit.
What's that?
And once you've bought your copy of the book over there, come for a biscuit and a piece of something sweet here that looks really quite delectable, and some juice, and I'll sign the book for you. We'll take the photographs, we'll do the whole publicity thing, and we're doing it not so much for me, yeah, for me, don't get me wrong, yeah, but we're doing it for the cause. We're doing it so that people get the message that health and safety is important. So John, finally, thank you so much for hosting us, we really appreciate it. To the team Mauritius and the team, thank you so much. Where's George? George is over there. Thank you. There was the young lady. She's hiding away now. She thought I was going to embarrass her. I would never do that. Oh, there she is. There she is. Over there. And the guys behind the counter. Thanks so much.
Ken,
and lastly,
one last, if I can
Yes.
interrupt. Your whole talk reminded me of something that happened to us here about 18 years ago. Soon after the mall opened, and we had a number of pop-up stores here, and we were moving from one to another. And the guys were moving these kinds of boxes, but back in those days we had solid superwood boxes, which weighed, I don't know, 30, 40 kilos. And the guys were hurtling around the bend here on a pallet with about 50 of these. And turned a corner, and they came off. And one went over the top and down, and missed the child by millimeters. Yeah.
shock.
Very scary.
So John, we all have stories to tell, eh? Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate that. So once again, to you, thank you, and mainly, Penny, my muse, my inspiration, my cycling buddy, my wife, and the one that